Hello and welcome to the Welborne podcast. We're inviting you to join us on a journey 17 years in the making, which will eventually culminate in the creation of a unique place here in Hampshire. It's a project driven by the passion and vision of a local landowner to create a new, thriving community here just north of Fareham, where alongside 6,000 beautifully designed new homes, the region will be enhanced with accessible green spaces, shops, schools, a technology park, and much, much more. And as part of this series, I'm delighted to spend time with some of the talented individuals behind bringing the project into reality as visionaries, creatives, architects who have combined to create a truly unique and one-of-a-kind development. And it brings me much pleasure today to spend some time here in the studio with Mark Wells from the Blanchard Wells Group, who are the group of civil engineers responsible for the initial infrastructure works that are now taking place on site. First and foremost, Mark, it's a pleasure to have you here in the studio. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And as a local lad, I know born and bred in Fareham, there must be immense pride. I mean, tell me, how do you feel to be amongst the first boots on the ground to deliver Welborne?
Well, Welborne's been on the radar for the Blanchard Wells Group for many years. Being a local member of the public, I was aware of the scheme. I was aware that it's a project that's going to do things differently, and I wanted to be part of that. I first met Mr. Thistlethwaite many years ago when we met to discuss the training centre, and it was clear from his initial communications that the legacy of what he was building was going to be special, and I wanted to be part of that. As a local person, I was born and bred in Fareham. I went to school in Stubbington, and I live only a mile away. So, seeing something that's going to be so fantastic and being part of it is something we want to be involved in.
So tell me a little bit about your journey into the world of engineering. I know you've worked in it professionally since the late 80s, but why that pathway for you, Mark?
Well, I was a rugby player in my 20s, and the construction industry had the same sort of banter and comradeship that the rugby had. And I did my A-levels at Fareham College, so I was reasonably well educated. But I laboured during the summer months when I was at college, and my mother said to me, you're not going to waste your education, so you need to go and get yourself a job in construction if that's what you want to do. So I became a quantity surveyor for Westbury Homes back in the late 80s, and then progressed through. And having quantity surveyed housing projects, it was the groundworks and civil engineering that I enjoyed. Every boy likes playing with big diggers, and that was what interested me, was the big schemes, the big earthworks, and I just migrated that way. I worked for one of the biggest civil engineering contractors in the region for a good few years, and learnt my ropes, and then set up on our own back in 2000. So it's a big boys, big digger sort of scenario,
Yeah.
really.
Tell me about the emotions through the process, in fact, in that then. So you guys are going in for the infrastructure, and I like to call it the works, so that the works can happen that someone more ordinary, like the everyman, might see as houses begin to be built, etc. But you're going in before that. But how does it feel to then drive past and see it completed, or even not completed, as the houses begin to go up?
Well, there's so much that happens in the ground, So we have to put the roads in, the drainage in, the services in. So, all of this key vital infrastructure has to go in order that the house builders can come in and then build their traditional house plots or community centres or district centres. So that key infrastructure is vitally important, and we've got to get that right. It's got to be in exactly the right position. It's got to be at the right level. We're working to tolerances that are extremely tight, and have to be accurate, because it holds the whole scheme together. And if we get that right at the start, then everything should flow from that.
I know there's been murmurs of a new housing town here, and what has become the Welborne project since the mid-noughties. So although you've got a professional eye on it, what were your personal opinions when you heard these rumours?
Well, lots of people don't like change, and having worked on many schemes around the country for many years, I see amazing projects being done, and in the end, most people look at the finished product and they go, that looks great. This is such a big scheme, and it's right on the doorstep, and things are the standards here are much higher than everywhere else. and I can feel the impact it's going to have in a hugely positive way on the whole of the area. And the Fareham, Wickham, Gosport, this region is a great place to live. Add Welborne to it, and it's going to be a fantastic place to live. So it's something I wanted to be heavily involved with. Even if Blanchard Wells weren't involved, I'd love to have worked for Mr. Thistlethwaite on the project. So it's something that is a real passion.
So tell me a little bit about how that energy is also conveyed on site, because I know amongst your 300 staff, 95% of them are local. And in fact, of the 50 employees that are currently working on site, they all live within 10 miles of the Welborne project. Does this also convey itself amongst the group, not just yourself as an individual?
Yeah, it does. When we talk about the period that Welborne's going to be over, it's a 25-year scheme. There's opportunity, providing everything goes well, there's opportunity for employment for us and other local people for an awful long period of time. And we work-life balance, if there is such a thing, we like to concentrate on that. But, getting guys back to their families is important. We don't want people on the road too much if we can help it.
Yeah.
And getting them back to their families at night is a great thing. Working within 10 miles from home is just unheard of for a lot of our men. So they're really sort of taken to it as well. So yeah, it's a great thing.
That's really wonderful to hear the human side of it, things and elements that perhaps we don't even think about. It's because I guess on other projects you might work away for long periods of time. And do you feel that makes for a happier workforce?
100%. We said to all of the guys and that are working down at Welborne that they've got to go to sports day for their sons and daughters. Now they can't do that if they're working in Brighton or if they're working in Dorchester.
Okay.
So they're able to go to their parents' evening, to their sports days, and they'll slide off for a half a day to go to do that. And that's a great thing. That's what parenting's all about, right? So it's a great place to be.
Yeah, it's another example of how Welborne as a project is making sure that they prioritise the individuals in the wider community here in the region, isn't it? And there's invitations, of course, for people to come and see the site at particular times. I know we're going to delve into that more as well, but keep the workers happy, and that enhances the region in its own way.
Yeah, in order for us to be able to get a standard of the quality of the work that we're doing down there and a standard of how we conduct ourselves, we need consistency of people. We need the right people. We need the right attitudes. And we've handpicked our teams that are down there. We've got, as you say, we've got 350 members of staff and 50 are down there. The guys enjoy working down there. They're treated well. They're respected, and we're able to get on with the work that we're doing. So that's everything a working man wants.
And also, I know that one of your pillars of your organisation is trust, right? And so the trust is back and forth. It's not just that you entrust in your workers to deliver, but they trust in you to have their well-being as a priority.
100%. We have a business that's got a set of hard rules that keeps its foundation and governance in place. We recruit people for their attitude, and then we train them for their skill. We'll come on to the training centre in a while, but If we choose the right people, they're given the opportunity to work within a set of governance and guidelines, then we produce amazing things. And we have to entrust them to be able to do their work. The guys that are down there, we've got some of the best civil engineering expertise in the country working down there. And you can see that in the outputs and the production and the standards of work that's been done.
This is really great to hear how the Welborne project, the trickle-down effect of the investment that it's making in this region. And in fact, let's talk about your engineering centre that you've got. That's where you first met Mark Thistlethwaite back in 2018. What were those initial meetings like? And then when you heard about Welborne, how natural did it feel that you and your organisation had to be a part of this project?
Well, we presented to Mr. Beresford and Mr. Thistlethwaite in 2018 CTEC, which is the Civil Engineering Training Centre in Lyon-Solent, that was set up. I was one of the founder ideas on the project. And we addressed and presented to Mr. Thistlethwaite what we're doing down there. So we're trying to get young people into construction. It's the only training centre in the country that does it for civil engineering, and it's a bespoke centre where we get young people work ready. So it's a mock construction site down there. So they go to work. They're not in a school. They're not in a further education facility. They're in a training centre ready to go to work. And we've had an awful lot of apprentices go through there. There's been 15 or 16 that have been working at Welborne already.
Yeah.
Now, bearing in mind we've only been there 6 months. and some of those have progressed on really well. And Mr. Thistlethwaite's really keen on local people being given local opportunities to work at Welborne, and CTEC can facilitate that.
Yeah, it's great. You are kind of building on this legacy idea that Welborne wants to have. I know that you were fundamental as well to changing this apprentice course at Fareham College. Tell me why perhaps the existing course that was there didn't quite live up to or create the apprentices that you felt were needed within the civil engineering industry.
So the demographic of the learner, the young learner that works in construction, particularly in civil engineering, is one where they don't want to sit in a classroom. So the only facilities available for them to do groundworks and civil engineering was in a classroom-based environment in Bournemouth and Paul College. So we were having to send people by train to Bournemouth and Paul College, an hour and a half each way, to sit in a classroom.
Where they're not inspired.
They're not inspired at all. So we wanted to create an environment where they were going to work, and it was a mock construction site, so they would actually be out there building things and working with their hands, as well as clearly there's an element of classroom-based. But the classroom-based is only a third, and there's 2/3 outside. And this then energises the young learner. And the idea was it was based around Army basic training. So the Army basic training, you would do 20 weeks basic training, and then you would send them to an infantry platoon or whatever. In construction, we were sending apprentices for a day release at college and sending them to site for 4 days. When they were of very little use. Their energy levels were low because they were given a brush or a shovel. They weren't trained. Whereas we send them now after 20 weeks with a good base foundation. And their mentors then are energised because they've got someone who's of use to them, and the young learner's energised. So the whole demographic changes.
Yeah, so what's kind of lost then with, let's say, on the other side of the coin, a more theoretically heavy course?
Well, because the demographic of the people that want to work in construction, they want to work with their hands, and they want to work outside. They don't want to be sat in a class, and generally they didn't enjoy school. Generally, they couldn't wait to finish, and they want to go to work, and that foundation is the difference.
And also, do you think it's to do with being able to recognise successes for the individual in what they're creating or what they're being a part of?
Well, it was choice as well. So we're able to give them a base of training, then they can then specialise. So they can become a setting out engineer, they can become a plant operator, they can become a deep drainage expert, they can become a paving expert. So they have choice. Then when you add in the ability for them to earn really good money, so the package and opportunity, they're in an environment and an industry that's growing. Generally the construction industry is generally busy. It props up the economy when it has to. And there's opportunity for them to earn some good money. And I stand up in front of young apprentices and I say to them, I need 3 things from you, and if you can give me these 3 things, I can guarantee you one thing the government can't, and that is you'll better buy your own house, because the money that's available to earn in construction is very good. The 3 things are honesty, great timekeeping, and a willingness to progress. And if they don't need to have a degree in science, they don't need to have £1,000 in the bank. If they've got those 3 things, we're able to progress them on into something special.
Again, it's fantastic to hear how the Welborne project is adding to the local economy here in Hampshire. Also, I know that you were critical in removing some of the red tape that was holding back some of these apprentices. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, as an employer, I knew what we wanted, but the governance around how to deal with FE and how to deal with, for FE being further education, how to deal with the petals and detals and the training part of it, which is what Fareham College do for us, they were able to take on board. We also identified that recruitment of the young learners was important. And as a 53-year-old man, trying to communicate with a young learner who's 16, 17, 18 didn't work. So we used Fareham College's portals to communicate and to recruit people. Right. So not only do we recruit ourselves, they recruit for us. So those sorts of things where we're able to understand the young learner and understand the best way for them to be communicated with, to be taught, and for us to get what we need at the end of it, it worked as a harmony.
Yeah, I want to delve into the specific point that we talked about off camera because I think it's a great one for people to be able to understand and empathise with. How you conveyed and paralleled how Max Verstappen in the Formula One world was working compared to an apprentice on site, and what the restrictions were with him compared to Max Verstappen in F1.
So when we set up CTEC, Max Verstappen had just come into Formula One, and he was driving a Red Bull Formula One car around a track at 210, 215 miles an hour.
At just over 17 years of age.
17 years and 50 or 60 days. And yet we weren't able to put a 17-year-old young learner on a 2 mile an hour roller to teach him how to drive a roller because the red tape said he was too young. And we've broken down those barriers, and we've got a very controlled environment where we can now teach 16, 17 and 18-year-olds to drive a small dumper, forward tipping dumper and a roller, and they become of use to us. And when I put these photographs of Max Verstappen with a big tick next to his name because he's racing a Formula One car, and a cross next to a guy on a roller, it was a stark portrait of where we were as an industry. And we needed to break those barriers down, and that's what we've done.
So how did you do that then with the powers that be?
So I managed to push myself onto the trailblazing group that set the curriculum, and we risk assessed the environment that we put the young learners in, and we made sure we had the very best training through the CITB at Leon Solent at CTEC in order to train these young learners.
And I guess you want these young learners to come in, have a growth mindset, and something as substantial of being able to control a digger gives you a sense of value and purpose all of a sudden, rather than always being pushed to the side because of the red tape.
But they're able to contribute straight away. So they go to site, they're able to contribute, which means that they're then instantly part of the team, instantly part of the site team. So rather than being the young lad, they're part of the team. Young lad or young lasses, they're part of the team. And that involvement and that belonging part of the team is something that's really, really fundamental to them.
Everything you're saying is absolutely brilliant to hear. Let's delve a little bit into the specifics that some of the apprentices on the Welborne project are actually doing. What are they up to on site currently?
Well, so we've got cohort 1, which is the first cohort that went through CTEC, was 5 years ago. So these lads have been with us 5 years. So we've got guys that are laying the main infrastructure drain on the Welborne Mile. So it's 6 metres deep. So just to put that into context, if you stand at your front door and you look up to your roof, that's 6 metres deep. Right. So they're laying drains at 6 metres deep that are great big, 2 foot wide drains. So 450, 500 mil diameter drains that take the main foul and storm down the Welborne Mile and link up to the main Southern Water infrastructure. So they're laying that. They're in their early 20s, mid 20s. And it's fantastic to see that they're doing this with great big 25-ton excavators, which is two of the guys are doing that. We've got one guy who started as an apprentice, and when we had an apprentice review meeting, I said, the opportunities available to you guys. You can become an engineer, you can become a plant operator, you can become a deep drainage expert. And I said, just let me know what you want to do. He ran from the back of the room. He ran from the back of the room at me. I want to be an engineer. And I said, his name's Josh. I said, well done, Josh. Great stuff. Tomorrow morning, you can go and start working with the engineers. Wow. And he did the following day. And he's now at Welborne, setting out to the millimetre accuracy where all the drains go, the depth of the drains, the line and level. And he hosted last week, Fareham Borough Council, the head of Fareham Borough Council and the councillors in a visit at Welborne. He hosted them. It's fantastic to see.
This is really inspiring, and for yourself as a mentor, I mean, I feel in awe at what you're actually achieving. I work with young people myself, and I know that sometimes when they're disengaged, it can be really difficult. But you just mentioned with Josh there, one of the apprentices, that the sophisticated things that he's actually doing, and again, the purpose and the pride that must be giving him as an individual, perhaps something you would never envision for someone who possibly could be disengaged in the classroom setting.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to understand the individual, trying not to standardise them with roles, trying not to make sure that they all go down the same route, to understand what they want, listen to them, encourage them, and find a role that really suits their character. And this particular role suits Josh down to the ground. He's worked on a project in Brighton for us at Hove, which is 6 tower blocks of reinforced concrete structures. Now he's come up and he's working on the highways and infrastructure at Welborne. He's been there for 3 or 4 months now, and he could very easily be there for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
If everything goes the right way. Having that close to his home, where he's contributing again to the local community and doing such a great job, is awe-inspiring, really.
And the confidence it must provide to these individuals, as you mentioned, showing around VIPs, important individuals from Fareham Borough Council on the site to get their buy-in, because there's huge influences there, right? So you must entrust him to do that as well.
Josh is very confident. No, we just say that he's confident, but he's still only a young man.
Yeah.
And there were 15 or 16 dignitaries last week, and he hosted them around and shared his story. And shared the standards and the we call it Welborne excellence. So Blanchard Wells has got a thing called Welborne excellence, which is where we won't accept anything other than the very best. We identify what that is, but Josh is able to communicate that in a free and open way.
Mark, I have no doubt that some people are going to be watching or listening to this being so heartened and warmed by the investment that's being made of the young people of Hampshire as part of this. So I want to talk a little bit about the future training ideas that you have as well. Some of the figures that I saw across the 20, 30-year project of maybe up to 1,600 apprentices coming through the system, 3,500 opportunities to upskill individuals. Tell me a little bit about those specifics.
As a business, we want people. They don't have to have a degree in science or A levels or even heavy GCSEs. We want people that want to work in the industry, that can get out of bed in the mornings and that are honest in what they do. We can train them to have amazing careers. And we've got many father and son relationships in Blanchard Wells. We can train them to have amazing careers in whatever specialist route they choose. So we need those people. Welborne needs those people. Now, whether they become bricklayers or they become civil engineers or they become plant operators or forklift drivers, the opportunity at Welborne is job security. It's about standards and excellence, so we have to pick people with the right attitude. But there's just jobs available in nearly every aspect of construction at Welborne, and professional. So the professional teams, the engineers and architects will be looking for people as well. The industry needs good people, and that doesn't mean that they need to be really highly educated. It can be the full breadth, from professional people that have done A levels, right, A levels and degrees, through to young people that didn't enjoy school. That goes even further, because we're looking for resettlement of military staff. Mr. Thistlethwaite's very keen on supporting the homeless charities.
Yeah, I know that's part of the next stage of this investment in the community, isn't it?
100% it is. With CTEC, with us being able to train people, with us being able to offer them employment, and it be gainful employment, in an environment that's safe, in an environment that's got a long-term prospect there, we are able to go further than ever before, because we've got all those foundations in place to be able to help people.
Mark, the stuff that you're saying is absolutely fantastic. I feel like we've almost ended up in a conversation on aspiration and mentorship. And again, I'm sure people are watching this feeling amazed. Would they get in contact with Welborne as a project, or would they get in contact with Blanchard Wells? What would they do if they were interested?
All and everything. So there'll be the national house builders that are in there, the house builders that have been chosen. They can be in contact with them. They can come in contact with Blanchard Wells. So we've got a recruitment lady. She looks after all of our apprentices and our recruitment. And again, the Welborne office, they can even just walk into site and speak to our site staff there. There's opportunity for gainful employment tomorrow morning. That's how available it is. But what's important there is, we want people that have got the right effort.
Yeah.
And that's all they need.
It's kind of, as long as you're ready and willing, we will support you with the expertise
100%.
to enable you as an individual to flourish, then your family can flourish, then the area flourishes,
exactly
and
right.
that's part of the Welborne legacy, isn't it?
We've got at Blanchard Wells, we've got a thing called our ABC. So if the individual turns up with the right attitude, being the A, their behaviours become the right behaviours, and a collective of the right behaviours is what we're all about, our culture. So and if we get the right culture of the right people there, we'll all be building something very special.
And just to end then, as people are listening to this, what would be some of the work that they'd be doing when you initially go into a site? What are the challenges you're up against, the hurdles that you come across? And of course, you'll be working amongst a team of people, not just with civil engineers and the fellow workers on site, but the ecology team, for example, the landscape architect, the town architect.
Yeah.
How does this all come together?
Well, it's a big challenge, because there are ecologists, architects. The environment we're in, we have to respect. So we have to understand that environment first. That understanding of the environment has to be then designed into the future plans. And we work extremely closely with the environmentalists, the ecology teams, and primarily the structural engineers to understand their vision, because we build exactly what they design. And that has to be then taken from their design and then parceled back down so that the working man can understand what he's being asked to
I
do.
assume that you might push back a little if certain elements aren't practical, though, as well.
Well, we do. The big challenge that we've had down at Welborne is the standards around the civil engineering changed just before the main design was done. So there was a thing called the sewer sector guidance, which was a mandatory document, big heavyweight document that came into play. So Blanchard Wells, as a team, we support the designers, make sure that we challenge it, make sure that we all work together so we're building exactly what governance requires us to build, in a way that doesn't damage the environment any more than the design needs it to.
Well,
So
Mark,
it's very important.
Mark, it has been, honestly, an absolute pleasure to catch up on you. I feel that we've ended up on a bit of a tangent. I hope the powers that be as part of the production team aren't going to say to me, no, we need to pull it back, because it's been so interesting about the legacy that the Welborne project is allowing to be embedded via organisations such as Blanchard Wells, etc. And thank you so much for doing that. Thank you so much for being so passionate about it. It's been a real pleasure to catch up with you.
Thank you for having me.
And so if you're out there, you are interested in knowing more about Blanchard Wells, about the Welborne project, then make sure you head over to the website at www.welborne.co.uk, and there'll be regular updates and postings as well across the socials. So get in touch on Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram at Welborne UK. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.